Socrates told us all about critical thinking. And that's really why I fell in love with the art of communication and rhetoric. It's because of him and all of his teachings. So I was very much looking forward to going to the National Communications Association here during the past Veterans Day weekend. I was excited. So I particularly wanted to go to a veterans panel where they were discussing rhetoric and veterans and things. And keep in mind that this is during Veterans Day weekend. In particular, one of the talks that I went to, there was a panel, and I heard more than once from this panel, and I quote, "America's veterans are monsters." Matter of fact, they are Frankenstein's monsters. As I sat on the front row listening to individuals who were supposed to be teaching about the ethics of communication and being critical thinkers, I was quite upset, and rightfully so, because on Veterans Day weekend, when daily 22 veterans lose their life to suicide, I said, we have a problem here. We have a problem because I am listening to people who are educators tell people in the audience that veterans, and I quote again, are Frankenstein's monsters. And they had no issue saying this. And knowing that 22 veterans a day are committing suicide, that is a problem. So today, I felt that we need an education on what is post-traumatic stress disorder, because of the fact on that same weekend, there was a mass shooting. And in this same talk, a woman says, as soon as I heard that there was a shooting in California, I knew it was a veteran. I don't know if she is like Notre Dame, but there's no way. And to say these things creates issues for the veterans community. It stops people from getting the care that they should seek. That is why we have 22 a day commit suicide. It's because society is doing this. Now, I want to tell you about post-traumatic stress, but to do that, I want to use a technology called Spect Imaging. Now, Spect Imaging is the latest, greatest from Dr. Daniel Amen. Dr. Daniel Amen is a psychiatrist. And he wanted to know, as a psychiatrist, why are we the only medical doctors that aren't actually able to look at the physical organ? So through creating SPECT, which is single photon emitting computerized topography, what that means is a single photon gets emitted in the brain, it gets recorded by the computer, creates a 3D image. You can literally see a thought. And so with the SPECT, in PTSD, but before I get there, what is PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder can come, of course, by being in combat. Can also natural disasters. Can also be if you get in a car wreck. Can also be sexual violence, which we just recently heard about. So if these academics that I spoke about earlier were talking about veterans are monsters, and the mass media talking about because someone has PTSD, they're going to be a mass murderer. Well then, according to that logic, I should be scared of everyone that's ever witnessed a natural disaster. I should be scared of everyone that's been in a car wreck that got PTSD. Should be scared of every other sexual assault victim. But that's not the case. So what I want to look at, this is the brain through that SPECT imaging that I was speaking about. Just to give you a reference point, thumbs are the back of my head, right here, okay? Let's flip this direction. Now, all of you who have healthy brains right here in this audience, right now, this would be your brain because that's the hippocampus. It's taking in memories, it's checking those for what we've learned in the past about everything that I'm saying, and you're fact-checking yourselves. You're just recording information. That's a healthy brain. Well, here's a brain with post-traumatic stress disorder. Those red areas that you saw on the first screen was active. Now, what you see here red is active. It's the whole brain, pretty much. And then the white part, the phosphorus white parts, they're being overactive. That is an overactive brain. That is why when the amygdala, that deals with our emotion, also deals with fight or flight, you have those instant reactions. Then we also deal with the ventral prefrontal cortex. That is not just the front part of my brain, that's what's going left and right brain as well, but it deals with my fear, it deals with my risk association. That's why most people with post-traumatic stress have high-risk behavior. And it's my higher thinking. Then we have the hippocampus. The hippocampus is my memory. It also deals with the context of what I see things, and I'll explain how all this kind of goes together. But then again, we have the cerebral cortex, the higher thinking, and the thought processes. Now, that's called the ring of fire. It's called the ring of fire because if you can imagine when someone has that thought that's racing through their head, a veteran particularly who's dealing with a post-traumatic stress issue at this time, they can't release the thought. And they don't know when that thought will come to them. That's why there's many sleepless nights. Now, from everything that I've said earlier, I want you to be a critical thinker. Just because someone has a mental illness, particularly post-traumatic stress disorder, does not mean that this individual, A, is a monster just by their service, number one. Number two, it doesn't mean they're going to be a mass murderer. Because the brain that you're looking at right now, that's my brain. Now, the mass murderer, they said that he had a 6-month deployment to Afghanistan. And they claimed that he was a mass murderer because he had post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, I would tell you on one deployment of mine at a 15 months, I've had over 585 service-recorded combat missions, and I have no ill will towards anyone here to make me a mass murderer. So when the mainstream media says these things, I want you to do what Socrates has called us to do and be a critical thinker. Do not react with fear. We need to be doing more for these 22 veterans a day. We need to be thanking them. We need to be welcoming them back home. And we need to just be more critical about what we're taking in. And I say that because this affects my community. Thank you very much.